Way to go, Tic Tac!
That's how you punch.
Wakanda forever!
You wouldn't have heard of me.
Let me put you on hold.
Dance off, bro! He's a friend from work!
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
What up, guys? It's Dom, and welcome back to another movie review. Today we are going over and ranking The Longest Yard. The Longest Yard, released in 2005, directed by Peter Segal. After an unsuccessful attempt to outrun the police in a stolen vehicle, a retired football player, Paul Crewe, is sentenced to 3 years in prison, where he forms a football team made entirely of convicts to play against the very guards that uphold them. Now, I have watched this movie countless of times, and it is a personal favorite of mine, but I do have to view this objectively while doing this review because there's going to be a lot of bias. This is probably one of the movies I've rewatched the most because I just enjoy the type of comedy it is and the whole concept of the movie. But either way, let's just get right into the 10 essential aspects of a movie. The first essential aspect is plot. So this movie is actually a remake of The Longest Yard from 1974. I think it's 1974. Don't quote me. That's just what I think I remember. And either way, the plot I actually really enjoy. I think it's the same in the first one. I don't know. I should probably watch it and find out. But as it comes with this movie, I actually do really like the plot. I like the idea of all these prisoners actually taking out their anger on the guards, not with just fighting, but with just football, especially since they are in, I don't remember if it's Alabama or Texas or some big football state. So of course, everyone loves watching football there. And when it comes to a game of entertainment, which is prisoners versus their guards, of course, everyone wants to see that. If that happened in real life, I would want to see that. I'd want to see what kind of instincts would come out in these convicts to try to get that win playing against people that beat them and constantly yell at them and tell them what to do, because there's a lot of pent-up aggression there, and coming from people that are aggressive, as in murderers and so on, that gets interesting. So personally, the whole idea of this movie and the whole concept is very entertaining to me, so I thought they did really good with the plot as well as character development. I think all of these characters develop throughout the movie a lot, and it just makes it more of an interesting watch. The second essential aspect is attraction. So like I just said, I think the concept of this movie is really interesting and funny. I really enjoyed this movie. I'm one of the people that enjoys watching most of Adam Sandler's movies. Even if they are cringy, they're still funny to the point where it's an enjoyable watch. And this cast had a lot of talent when it came to just these small little funny moments. So I think overall in the movie, it made it a lot more enjoyable and a lot more attractive because of those points. Plus, just the character development, again, made it so much more interesting because you see these people that are convicts turn into these just football players where they don't even care about getting after the guards. They just want to win the game. And especially that last part when we're actually watching the game and seeing what happens, it almost feels like I'm actually watching a football game. I'm rooting for this team. I'm rooting for Mean Machine, and I want to see what happens next, even though I've watched it countless of times. The third essential aspect is theme. Now, I think a theme of this movie, and I say a theme because there's a bunch of little themes, but I think the one that stood out the most for me was never give up on family. Now, obviously, in this movie, Paul Crewe isn't actually forgetting of his real family, but of the family he's made with his teammates, with the other convicts, with Mean Machine, and realized maybe I shouldn't turn my back on these guys because of the bond that they made. So I feel like out of all the small little themes in there, that was definitely the one that stood out the most to me. The fourth essential aspect is dialogue. Now, the dialogue isn't anything too special. Now, the comedy was really good. It was my kind of comedy. I enjoyed it. And when it came to actually characters sounding real, they felt real enough to be portrayed as comedy characters, because obviously I feel like convicts wouldn't really talk this way to each other, but because of course it's Adam Sandler, it's Chris Rock, it made it funnier. And I think that was a smart choice. I feel like the movie wouldn't be as enjoyable with realistic dialogue in that situation. But when it came to this movie, the comedy made sense. So I really enjoyed it. I think they had a great choice in that kind of dialogue. But yeah, as realistic conversations go, the movie didn't have too much. The fifth essential aspect is acting. Now, there's a few actors I want to talk about. I'll start off with Adam Sandler, who played the main star, Paul Crewe. I think he did a really good job. If you've seen Adam Sandler movies and you know his kind of comedy, that's what it was in this. The character was very enjoyable. His backstory is interesting, and the way that his character developed towards the end was also a good sight. We have Burt Reynolds, who played Nate Scarborough, and he had a minimal role in this. He was kind of like the coach for the team, and it was cool to see his character. And what I do know, even though I never watched the original one, Burt Reynolds played Paul Crewe in the original movie, so it's cool to see him have a appearance and kind of show up in this movie, because it probably meant a lot to him since he starred in the first movie. And on that note, Ed Lauder, who played Duan in this movie, he played Captain Canower in the first movie. So seeing these characters that were in that original movie coming back in this movie, wanting to see this project reworked and kind of remade in a better way or a different way, was really cool to see. Even though I didn't watch the first movie, it was still cool to see that it was in there. And Michael Irvin, who played Deacon Moss, he's actually an actual football player. And I don't know too much about him. I'm not sure if he's retired. I know he played for he definitely is retired by now, but played for the Cowboys. And that was also really cool to see, of course, a movie about football having a football player in there, especially since he's kind of the one that saved the day in this movie. So that was cool for him to be in there and see. William Fichtner, who played Captain Canower in this movie, he did a really good job as well with the acting. His character was very believable. He had more of a serious role in this movie than, of course, Adam Sandler or Chris Rock did. But I really did enjoy his character in this movie, especially the way that it developed towards the end. It made it definitely for a better watch. And Chris Rock, who played Caretaker, he was almost like a main character as well. He meant a lot to Paul Crewe. He was the first friendly face he saw in prison, and they basically bonded since then, seeing them throughout the whole movie and the chemistry they had, especially since obviously Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, so many movies together, always a great match. So I'm glad he was in there as well to add to that energy. The sixth essential aspect is cinematography. Now, when it came to visuals, not much there. I mean, movie looks fine. I like the desert that they're really in, and the location of the prison and the location of the field that they play in, but nothing really too crazy for visuals. And emotions, again, nothing too crazy until the end. I'm not going to spoil it, but a lot of stuff happens, and it does. If you are invested in these characters as I was, you will feel something. So I got to say, emotionally, for the viewers that got invested, it does have some there. If you didn't really get invested as much, or this isn't your kind of comedy, then it might not be there as much as for me. The seventh essential aspect is editing. Now, this movie is an hour and 53 minutes long, and personally, I liked that length. I liked that it was closer to that 2 hour mark because I was so interested in the concept and in all the characters. I wanted to watch more, but I feel like Adam Sandler's comedy, a lot of people love, a lot of people like him as an actor, but it's not for everyone. So for those few that don't really like him as an actor, don't like his comedy, this would be a bit of a longer watch for you. But I gotta say, the movie was paced really well. It had a lot of detail in the character development that actually boosted the plot a lot and made it for a more interesting watch, because you learned about these characters. You know what they've done. You know where they're going. So seeing all these characters develop in that time is why I think it does deserve to be around that 2 hour mark, because it helped it pace really well and the ending wrapped up really well as well. So I just said well a lot. But either way, yeah. So I think the actual editing of this movie is really good. The eighth essential aspect is soundtrack. Now, I love the soundtrack of this movie. I don't remember exactly what the names of the songs that were playing, but I really did think they fit the characters that were on screen as the music was playing. So as little soundtrack as there was there, when the soundtrack was there, it was really good. The ninth essential aspect is directing. Now, I think it's the director's job to take these previous 8 essential aspects, put them together to make the movie that's worth watching. And the director of this movie is Peter Segal, and he's previously directed 6 movies, and they were Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult, Tommy Boy, My Fellow Americans, Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps, Anger Management, and 50 First Dates. Now, I'm not sure what those movies are at the beginning. I've never really watched them, but Anger Management and 50 First Dates, I've seen those movies. They have the same kind of Adam Sandler comedy, so it makes sense why it's also in this one, because he's made those. He saw that they were at least enjoyable to people, so he wanted to replicate that with this remake. And I gotta say, the movie is definitely worth watching. I enjoyed it. I'm gonna rewatch this plenty of times, but I do gotta say, it's kind of very middle of the road when it comes to movies all time, because it's a very simple concept. It's meant for entertainment, but it doesn't blow anything out of the water. So as much as I will rewatch this forever and I love this movie, I can't in good conscience say that it doesn't have any... I mean, actually, it doesn't have much wrong with it, but it doesn't have much amazing with it. And the 10th essential aspect is time. This movie came out in 2005, so it's 19 years old, almost 20 years old. So I gotta say, did it stand the test of time? For me, it did. I still remember this movie. I still watch this movie all the time. I feel like it isn't one of those movies, though, that for everyone it stands the test of time. I feel like as a sports movie, people might remember this, might remember watching it, might not even remember 100% what it's about. But I feel like most people do remember this if this is their cup of tea. So it's really hard to tell if it will stand the test of time, if it has stood the test of time. I feel like it does, but prove me wrong in the comments. Now, onto the reviews. So, Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it a 32%, Rotten Tomatoes audience gave it a 62%, and IMDb gave it a 64%. Now, obviously I love this movie, but I know it's not perfect. So I understand why people put the low 30s, the 32%, but I personally don't agree with that, so let's get that out of there. And now this 62, 64%, I agree more. I feel like my bias is going to want to put me in that 70%, 75%, just because I don't see much wrong with it. Now, there's a lot of movies that have a lot wrong with it. Now, obviously, this movie doesn't have anything amazing, so it is very middle of the road, but I do think it's above average. So it's not. I'm not going to put that at 50. I don't even want to put it at that 60. I think up like around the 70s is where I would want to put this movie. And finally, the rankings. So in 2005, it's going to be first. It's the only movie that I have reviewed so far in this year. So until then, it's going to be alone. In the 2000s, it's going to be first above X-Men Origins Wolverine. Now, both this movie and X-Men Origins Wolverine, I feel like I like way more than the general population. I mean, X-Men Origins Wolverine is one of the least favorites of a lot of people for X-Men movies, especially, and I loved it. It's in my top 3. So it is. It was very weird to see these both together because they're very similar in that aspect. But I do have to say, X-Men Origins Wolverine does have a lot more problems than this movie does, but it also has a lot more really good parts. So I feel like they average out to almost the same, but I want to give The Longest Yard that edge because the comedy, it just hit the spot. If I had to rewatch one movie, I would rewatch The Longest Yard. I mean, I have rewatched The Longest Yard. So I had to put it above it. And in all time, it's going to be 15th, above Deadpool and Wolverine and below X-Men First Class. Now, it's above Deadpool and Wolverine because both have really comedy that I really like. I just feel like there's more plot problems with with Deadpool and Wolverine than The Longest Yard. And even for me, a Marvel nerd, I love Marvel. I know everything that they were talking about in that movie, so it made the plot more tolerable to me, and I almost overlooked the bad parts. But now, obviously, after it's been in my mind for a while, I have thought of some of the things that bother me about it. So I can't say that movie is perfect. It's really good. I would love to rewatch it again, but I have to say The Longest Yard definitely has less problems. And it's definitely below X-Men First Class because X-Men First Class is really, really good. It has, I don't even know if it has too many problems, but I know it has a lot more better aspects than The Longest Yard does. So that wasn't really a difficult decision. It was definitely harder in that 2000s list to see where I would put it, but this one felt natural to me. That's all I have for The Longest Yard. If you guys enjoyed this review, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and make sure to comment what movie you want me to review next. And I should mention this in every video. I don't really remember. I'm sorry. It's been a long time since I recorded. It's been a week. I just went on vacation to Niagara. I proposed to my girlfriend. She said yes, so now we're engaged. So my mind has been all scrambled. So I honestly, since this isn't my job, it's kind of been in the back of my mind. It hasn't really been on the forefront. But I'm back now. I'm going to be posting a lot more, so stay tuned. But if you want to see someone that does movie reviews in the exact same way that I do, ranks them all time, does the whole 10 essential aspects, check out my best friend, Mr. Majoritarian. He is the one that got me into movie reviewing. I could never thank him enough. And obviously he has way different opinions than I do. He is not as big of a Marvel guy as I am, so especially on those movies, you will see an unbiased opinion from him, while you will see a little bit of bias from me. Like in my Venom The Last Dance review, he did one as well, and I could really tell that he was not the biggest fan of it. Obviously, for different reasons. I saw those things in the movie too. It just didn't affect me as much because of the love I have for the character. But either way, definitely make sure to comment what movie you want to see next. And I hope you guys have an amazing night. Peace out.